swag. I think this will suffice.
It's taking.
I gotta say, I love that Junior Damage has a shirt called Geek Pride because that's exactly all of my high school experience was wearing various shirts that said what a geek I was. So respect, man. RESPCT. All right, there's a photo you can take a gander at. Just pop that one in there.
People in the chat, if Jeff and Cyril are quiet, then everything is working.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, is that download finally done? Okay. Oh, I like the chimp better.
I mean, you know, I got to represent.
There we go.
I'm waiting for it to populate here.
There you go.
There you go.
So depending on this is gonna be like the thumbs up, thumbs down. Like depending on what I think about what you're saying.
I didn't. There you go.
This image will change during the course of the show.
Yeah. Well, just so, there you go. So, you know, I didn't eat for about 4 days to get that shot. So you know, a lot of hard work went into that.
That I can see. It doesn't look like you at all.
No, of course not.
This one does.
The chimp. No, you know what? You go back far enough on the chain. Chuckula, I like you, whoever you are. I like this. This is me like revolving. Here, I'm gonna throw one other one in there, Scott. That'll just bring things down a notch. This is oh no, that's me without any clothes on. I'm not gonna do that one.
Do you have anything with you on a bearskin rug?
I wish. I so wish.
Jordan, here's the order of service.
I know. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Here's the one. Just here's my high school graduation photo. This is precious. Let's pull this one in here. This is what I look like when I started the podcast. This is give you some context.
Aw.
It's
that's a more young that's a younger innocent sort of more virginal Jordan Drake.
How do we make you a mod in the chat?
Although you already had the 5 o'clock shadow.
Sort of. All right. Bottom left is totally Jordan. Sorry, Phil, you are incorrect. That handsome man is Cyril Kowalski. Living large.
I mean, we're interchangeable.
I think so.
I just need to start working out more, and then I can.
Nothing. I can't hold a candle. I can't hold a candle to Jeff though.
I can move to New York.
There you go. There's Jordan. There's innocent Jordan.
That's innocent right there. Okay.
That's innocent Jordan with that look that says, "Man, I wish I could do things to you."
All right. I think we can do this. I think it kind of works. And
yeah. So yeah.
And I think that we can probably take some questions from the chat too. You know what?
Absolutely.
I should tweet that this is happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same actually.
Yeah. All right, don't get fancy.
Can't remember my own login.
Okay, it's on Facebook and Twitter. We're in trouble now. I should put it on the tech reports. I don't know how to do that. Well, I do, but I'm not going to do it right now. Okay. Jordan, I think we're good. We just need to get HDog on top of all this and everything will crash.
Yeah, go ahead and get it all loaded up. I'm already recording.
Whoa. I'm going to put it in front of all your faces. 3, 2, 1, click. And okay, give us a 3, 2, 1.
3, 2,
Hold on.
1. Oh,
wait.
Yep.
Jeff, you got like
You can't do like a secondary click.
you got like dust on your camera right where your nose is. It's kind of freaking me out. Oh, it's a bad pixel. You can't fix it. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You need a new laptop. It's okay.
No, it's actually a separate webcam. This is
Oh,
the,
fancy.
it's just a cheapo one that I use for tablet battery life testing.
Okay. All right, Jordan, lead us in here.
3, 2, 1, click. I gotta say, it's all the sausage and all how it's made tonight for those watching / listening live. So, buckle in, folks. All 28 of yous. Or is that just 28 who are in the chat room?
72 viewers? That's terrifying. That can't be true.
No, there's no way.
Total views.
That's
Oh, okay.
total
Yeah,
views.
28,
That's
28 watching now.
there you go.
That's still too many. But
It's-
we
yeah.
just have to stop.
I was gonna be comfortable with like 5.
Just stop watching us, people. Just close the window. Do something else. It's Thursday night. It should be with your family.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear God! Please don't listen. Oh, I beg of you. Please do anything else. Go organize your fridge or something. You must have better things to do. All right. I just tweeted it. Now it's real.
All right.
Realer than real.
All of Jordan's
All
groupies are incoming.
Oh yeah, man.
Awesome.
It's the pocket square contingency. So a pocket square is this thing that you put in it. I'll explain later. All right. So I'm cool with this show order. If you guys are. I mean, we may not get to some of the stuff at the very end, but we need to definitely get to some of the reviews. So I don't know if you want to move those around a little bit.
No, the only thing is we'll just broadcast our sausage making stuff here is that like Cyril did all the work for the past 3 weeks, so everything here is his. So you know how you're like, Cyril, this is your story?
Mhm.
Like we may want to give him a break on that partway through some
Fine.
of this stuff and just like farm it out at random or something because there's a lot. So Cyril's looking terrified.
Yeah, he hasn't blinked for like the past 3 minutes.
I know.
All right. He's just staring at the screen. Okay. I say we just dive in because I don't want to show too much sausage.
No,
Well,
that's
comes later.
that we don't want you to either, believe me.
Late.
But what I do need from you all is 5 seconds. What I do need from y'all's is a 5 seconds of some silence right here, right now. All right, so 5 seconds of silence starting now.
That's more than 5. We're
Excellent.
done.
I just want to watch you guys try and hold your breath. It's very fascinating. All right, so a quick word to all those who are in the chat room. What you're seeing tonight, as you probably know, is a live stream of our show. Be warned, the version you usually hear in the regular podcast is edited, and this is unedited. This is the raw director's cut. So all the nudity, all the cursing, it's just all there for you to see, including my modeling shots. So it's just it's a lot going on tonight. But without further ado, I feel so much more in the mode. I kind of like this. It reminds me of live radio. Let's do this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Tech Report Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Drake, joining you for yet another episode of the Tech Report Podcast. It's the official podcast of the Tech Report. TechReport.com is the domain. It's the #1 place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world. A special shout out to all the people, the homies in the chat room who are actually watching us do this live. We're experimenting this week with a live stream of our webcams, except for me because my light bulb went out in my room and my supervisor of my apartment building was supposed to replace it today and then told me that I was supposed to provide the light bulbs. So he deep sixed me and now I'm sitting in the dark just rocking back and forth inconsolably. So I don't have a video, but you can check out, well, I guess you'd have to check out the posted version of this, which you might put up on YouTube, Scott. I don't know what we're going to do with this.
I hope if we can. This is all if we can figure out how to do it. But I'm
Right.
hoping that we can get the video from Twitch and then
Right.
put it on YouTube. If we can't, then next time we'll have to do local recording, which I can do, and I'm not doing now. So
Right. So we'll figure something out. So if you are listening and you want to check out the video stream in its raw form, do that and check it out. In the meantime, we'll just dive straight into the show. Let's start before anything else because we have some questions we could take from the chat channel if we want to do that, which would be kind of like a live Q&A. We can also talk about our first story of the night, which is Apple's refreshed iPad lineup and a new iMac with a 5K display. I'm excited to talk about that. But what I really want to talk about is the new Age of Ultron trailer. Have you guys all seen it?
I have. You guys, the Hulkbuster armor is like,
No.
wow.
Cyril, get off this podcast. Seriously, just leave. Just go.
I
I
don't
was
mind. I don't want a whole
I'm
bunch
sorry.
of people
Hold on.
staring at my face anyway.
I take it back. I take it back. Don't do that. It's funny, Jeff. You'd be proud of me. I was at the gym at like 6 a.m. this morning, and I was like waiting between sets, and I pull up my phone, and sure enough, on Facebook, it's like Age of Ultron trailer. So inevitably, I'm at the gym, like watching the trailer on my iPhone. I get home, I watch it on my computer. I get to work, I watch it while I'm at work. Probably shouldn't have said that. And then I think watched it one more time this evening at the tail end of the day. I've definitely been sort of digging into it. What did you guys think?
It looked great. I mean, it looked like fun. The thing is, of course, it's Joss Whedon, so you kind of I'm expecting good things, and then you see that what they did where they're showing the sort of the set pieces, the different characters, and like not really telling you. Fortunately, I don't think they give away too much. They didn't really tell you the plot. They kind of just gave you shadings of it, and
Right.
I could watch it a lot of times to try to figure stuff out, but I don't want to get too many spoilers, so I'm not going to do that.
You tend to, I feel like you're the kind of guy who wants to get a flavor, and then you don't really want to immerse yourself in all the nuances of the spoilers or the rumors or whatever, because you like it fresh.
Well, and I'm not a comic book guy, so I'm not going to be able to recognize every little bit as like,
Right.
oh, that's this guy, and all that. But yeah, it was enough where I saw it and thought, okay, this looks like it's really going to be fun. The shots that were the best, Jordan, were the Avengers, either individually or collectively, sitting around looking defeated. You get this sense that there's a place in this movie where they're getting their tails kicked, and
Very dark. Yes.
yeah, and they have to come together to go through it, and that's what Joss Whedon does really well. Is that those stories?
Is that a bit tropey that like? I guess it didn't really happen with Batman until the third movie, but it's like the second or third movie always has to be like, in his darkest hour, Batman, the Avengers, Spider-Man, are they gone for good? And you have to show some TV reporter going, could this be the end of the Fantastic Four? And everyone's like, please, we hope so. But the point is like, is it a little tropey that it's like has to be the dark sequel where everything goes to hell?
I don't know. I mean, there was a moment when they weren't much of a team, and they kind of had to come together in the first movie. I think
Right.
that's part of an Avengers movie. It has to be because you have
That's
all
true.
these
There has to
strong
be an
characters,
assemble.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a little bit tropey, but honestly, what Joss Whedon has done with those kinds of things, most people haven't done very well.
No,
Like
that's
the
true.
teamwork stuff is rare to have it done well. So usually it's the individual character who goes through the dark moment and the struggle,
That's true.
and maybe there's a guy who's like a one other character who they're playing off of or whatever. But I think this is going to be more interesting because it's got to be an ensemble, and they got to split them up and mix them in different ways.
And Whedon has he did that well with the Avengers. Like he gave everyone, it felt like a great gourmet meal of superhero, and it wasn't like the Captain America show or the Iron Man show. It's like you got your fill of everybody.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just trust that he's going to do a good job, honestly,
Yeah.
after
So
the first one.
A few other little highlights, like I think James Spader's voice as Ultron sounds really cool and scary. Excuse me. And I also think that I love the little, I don't know if you really caught this. It took me a few views and then reading some comments and a story about it to catch that the song the little kids are singing in the background is a song from Pinocchio, where Pinocchio's singing like "I got no strings to hold me down," and he's like doing this little song and dance about being free, and it's sung in this really haunting like little kid voice, and then you hear the Ultron voice going like "I have no strings on me," which is like I'm free, I'm no longer, I'm sentient. It's just a very cool way to mix Disney IP in kind of a creepy way. I thought that was fun. Before we move on, that's the geekiest thing I'll say tonight. Jeff, what did you think, given that you've seen it, and Cyril once again disappointed in you as a person?
Uh, I only watched it once, but it looks good. I mean, the first Avengers was good. I wasn't that big into Avengers when I was reading comic books a lot.
Right.
But it does look, the first movie was really well done, and I haven't been as crazy about the individual movies, but
Right.
it looks decent. It's
Yeah,
nice to
so-
be at a time where the exception is the bad superhero movie. Now they're actually doing
That's a good
reasonably
point.
consistently good job with them now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, it's like, oh, this one stunk. I'm really disappointed as to this one was good. What was that all about?
Yeah, it's just I saw a roadmap the other day of like the coming superhero
Till
movies.
2020.
Yeah, and it was like Ant-Man
Yes.
and all this stuff, and I was like,
yes.
there's at some point this is gonna fail. This is gonna be like what happened to Guitar Hero,
Right.
like at some
Good
point people would be
analogy.
like, not
like that.
another one of these, and it will die.
Yeah, I wondered about that. It's gonna get to a point where we're a bit saturated. When you look at that roadmap, it's literally like 40 films that'll be between now and 2020. It's gonna be a lot, but it's like, I don't know, because Guardians of the Galaxy comes out and it's brand new and no one's seen anything like it before, and it's fantastic. And
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems to work.
yeah. No, I did finally get to see Guardians of the Galaxy recently, Jordan,
Oh.
and really enjoyed it. Caught it before it
Yeah.
left the theaters, and
There you go.
it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, someone do me a favor and talk about IMAX iFresh iPad lineup. Someone's ringing my doorbell, and I got to go find out why. So carry on, my wayward sons. Be right back.
Cyril, this is your story.
Thank you, Scott.
So no, but I mean, okay, you sat and watched. Didn't you watch? You have to have an iPad to watch the live stream of the Apple event, right? Or a phone, or
Any iDevice or Mac.
Okay, so what did
wow.
you use to watch the live stream? Was it your old Mac notebook or?
Yeah, my 2008 MacBook, which surprisingly still works quite well, and I should probably upgrade it to Yosemite because it supports that. Surprisingly enough.
We should have a contest for oldest notebook, but it would just be so sad because yeah, you and I are gonna tie because we're the same one, but it's really old. We're at what, 5 years? It's October,
think
so
it'll be
this
5
is
years
year
this year.
5. Yeah, and it was like, well, I put an SSD in it, and then I didn't need anything else ever again.
Except for a better screen.
Yeah, except for good lord, a better screen, but and new batteries every once in a while. But it's okay, Cyril. So what's the headliner? Is it the iPad Air 2 or is it the new iMac?
Well, I would say the new iMac. I mean, the iPad Air 2 is kind of an incremental upgrade. I mean, it's
Right.
thinner, it's faster. You've got faster Wi-Fi. They upgraded it to 802.11 AC. Better cameras, better screen. It's like there's some kind of anti-reflective coating. There's a new iPad Mini as well. But prices are the same as before, capacities are the same as before, so you're just getting a slightly better version of the same thing. Whereas with the new iMac, it's kind of impressive what they've done. Everybody expected it to be like a 4K system, and they went above that. They call it a Retina 5K display, so it's 5120 by 2880, which is a lot of pixels. They had to do some crazy engineering to get it, to get the backlight to be just right, and apparently it actually draws less power than the non 5K version, like the 2560 by, I think it's 1600 or 1440 model. So yeah, and the actual hardware inside is about what you'd expect for that kind of system. 4-core Haswell, mobile Radeon R9.
Can I ask about that? The hardware internally, because again, I think everyone's impressed by the screen, but like, I always have a hard time placing every CPU and GPU product within the larger universe that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
How does that compare graphically and from a processor perspective to some of our system guides, for instance?
The GPU is the weird one, right, Cyril? It's a R9 295. That's what they called it.
Yeah, like M295X. I'm pretty sure it's a mobile part.
I
don't think
think
it's a desktop part.
I think it's a Tonga.
Yeah.
I
Wouldn't
think
be
it's a
surprised.
Tonga, which is R9 285 GPU. And if I'm wrong, we're live, so screw it. but I think it's a Tonga. So that, Jordan, that would be a pretty decent mid-range GPU. So $250, slightly overpriced right now, video card. But
It's kind of funny too
lower,
because
lower speed than the desktop. Anyway,
if you put in this in if you think about it in this way, none of us on this podcast, unless you guys saw something at CES I don't know about, have ever seen a display that's a higher resolution than 4K.
I saw this old IBM 30-inch display that was super high DPI, like at the GeForce 8800 launch, and it might have been higher resolution than that. I don't know.
Either way, what I think is cool is it's like, for the price of what I would have expected Dell to put out a monitor at this resolution, it's like, oh, you get a computer too. It's kind of a crazy little bundle they've done.
That's the positive side of it. I tweeted about this and everybody like retweeted this a lot. I kind of, not really. It's not really what I want in a $2,500. This is $2,500.
Yep.
$2,500 display I don't really want an integrated computer that can't be upgraded. Like that's a display that you buy for like a 5 to 7 year period, in my view. And maybe not. Maybe they just keep getting better and it's somewhat disposable. But it kind of hurts to have that hardware integrated into the display, don't you think?
Yeah, and what's
If you don't
crazy
want
is
a
that
Mac.
they haven't upgraded their they have a standalone, I think it's the Cinema display or something. They have a standalone monitor for the Mac Pro, which is their workstation system, and they have not upgraded that to 5K. So it's kind of odd to start with the the consumer system.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy. I mean, I get why iMacs exist. They make sense for people who don't want the cables. It's elegant. You put it in the desk. It's not messy. It's a premium product, and that's fine.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's also, I think, for, they have the Mac Pro, which they angle at the developers and the Premiere users, or Final Cut, but usually it's mostly Premiere and Photoshop. This is kind of, I think, now, if you're in the creative industry, the go-to Photoshop, Illustrator, CAD computer. It's just going to be the default. It's like, you don't need to buy the Mac Pro because you don't need something that powerful, but here's something that can edit 4K. Which is a growing need, and Premiere does that, and a lot of the guys who edit that video are on a Mac.
Yeah, well, part of that's because you either get the Mac Pro or you get this. There's no like desktop Mac at a reasonable price, and the Mini's not that exciting.
No,
but this is good for what it is a consumer thing, but it's not really a great professional system. And the upgradability, again, is the issue for a Pro, right?
Well, you can actually upgrade the RAM, but you can't upgrade the shells. No, I know. Hold on. When has the iMac ever been upgradable besides the RAM?
No,
I looked at the iFixit teardown, and you can upgrade it.
Well, it's not the question of whether the iMac concept is okay. It's just a question of whether the iMac concept at this price attached to this beautiful display is a good proposition. And I think for some people it is. I don't think for professionals that it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I don't think it's for you. So.
Do we even know what the display type is? Like, is this a TN panel? Is this true 8-bit or?
It's IPS, I think.
Apple didn't say, as far as I know. I think you're right to guess IPS, but
I think they did say.
Did they? Okay, I don't know.
So, speaking of the iPad, I'm actually going to buy an iPad Air 2.
Oh.
I'm fairly convinced. For a variety of reasons. I've never owned an iPad. And my inclination at this point is I need something to read books on, and I like the fact that it's anti-reflective. And I would get a Kindle because I like the idea of just something that will only, read books. But, I'd love to have something that I can put at my piano and use as piano music. So the iPad Air would work really well for that, and it'll download all the tablature online. And then B, the one time that I'm in meetings and I wish I had my laptop, but I'd rather not bring my entire laptop, which is a 15-inch MacBook Pro, is when I'm in meetings and I want to write notes into Evernote. So for me, having something that I can carry around to meetings, that I can have a keyboard that's part of the case, which is a million options out there for that, and then something that is not quite a Surface at $1,000, but is a $500 price point roughly, So it's content consumption, reading books, having something to play music off of, which is an odd usage case, but I definitely use it for that. And then just something that I can, run Evernote or reply to emails when I'm traveling and not have to bring the full laptop. But it's also not, I don't need to be like editing PowerPoints or whatever. So it's an odd fit into my world, but I think for me, it's like finally time to pull the trigger on something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the Kindle, well, they just released a new version with a higher DPI display, but the typography on it isn't that great, and it's a very small screen. So, if you're holding it over your head, I guess in bed or something, it's nice, but the rest of the time you want to have something maybe a little larger, so you can see, more words on the page, bigger paragraphs, and read faster.
Yeah, I've got a Nexus 7 and I love it. Totally love it. Greatest thing ever, the 2013. But bigger screens are nice, and I like what Apple's doing with the iPad Air. They keep making it thinner and lighter. Right? This one's what
Now, you're the first person I've heard say, I'm glad it's thinner, because everyone's like, oh, why is it thinner? No one asked for that.
Well, I want as much screen with as little extra weight and size as possible, because I really like my 7-inch tablet, but it is constraining to try and surf the web on it. It's too small for that. It's not good at that. It can do it, but it's not good at it. And so yeah, I think this makes sense to take your largest screen tablet or your 9-10-inch screen tablet and try to make it as ultra light as possible. Cyril, did they say how much lighter it is, or did they say it's lighter?
I don't recall them mentioning that.
Okay.
I'm looking at the article
It's
now.
got
They
Touch
did say
ID.
it's thinner.
It's got
Yeah.
Touch ID. It's got the faster A8X chips, more graphics performance, like 2.5 times graphics, 40% higher CPU, which is nice. All that's nice. And then I don't know about. I want to see the coating on the display, Jordan. Everybody has an anti-reflective coating.
Right.
The question is whether it's really better, right? So
Yeah, I guess my math is this. I'm sure if I looked at all the comparisons, an Android tablet or an Amazon tablet or one of the other options, I'm not saying which one, could be really smart for me. What it comes down to is I already have a Mac, I already have an iPhone. Makes no sense for me to go outside universe. It just doesn't. I already have the apps. There's the interchangeability. There's the whole handoff feature that they have between the Macs and the iPhones and stuff. So it just fits into my world, and so it's not me holding tightly to it. It just makes the most sense, and it's the most efficient. And I wouldn't have to pay for new apps, which, to be fair, there are some iPad specific apps you can buy, but for the most part, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, so it is slightly lighter. It's about an ounce lighter.
okay.
And the one thing I'll say that was really funny to me, I was listening to This Week in Tech, and Leo Laporte was going, again, I was surprised to hear you say, Scott, that you're happy it's lighter or thinner. He's like, who needed it thinner? No one needed it thinner. And there are these times when I hear people talking about technology, and I would even apply this to some of the stuff we talk about PC hardware, where I just forget that I work in marketing. And I don't mean to say that I am some sort of enlightened being, but if you work in the marketing world, you understand there are certain things you do sometimes just because it sells product. So you make it thinner because you want as many people as possible who have an existing iPad to have as many reasons as possible to decide they need the new one. And thinner is just part of that psychological equation. Oh, it's thinner and it's lighter. So even though people may not have been screaming and saying the existing Air was too thick, and some people might have said, I really wish that we could have had, more battery life. Ultimately, you need someone to feel it in store and go, wow, that's so crazy thin. Same reason why GarageBand has those crazy, features that aren't really very useful, but create funny music with different loops. They're all designed so that people in the store can do crazy things that they don't feel they can do on a PC and then go buy the Mac. So it's like when you apply things with a marketing lens, you realize sometimes they're making decisions that are not to appease the techies. It's just this will make people have the gotta have a want to need it factor.
Right. Now, I can see that. I also personally think that I want a lot of screen and nothing else in terms of weight or ballast
Well, there you go.
around
And
it.
that's a good reason too.
Right. I think because well, to me, a 7-inch tablet is about the perfect size for reading and a lot of other things I do, but it's not good for the web, and we already went through this. So,
Yeah, I get that.
anyway, the other thing that that I wanted to kind of touch on is the new iPad Mini 3 came out too, which I think maybe they're selling more minis now than I think are the Airs, aren't they?
No, actually, if you think, well, I don't know what the exact sales breakdown was, but the general consensus seems to have been they really kind of undersold the Mini. They mentioned it very briefly. They didn't upgrade the processor. It's still the
no,
A7.
no. I know that. Like in the presentation they did.
Right,
But I
right.
think in terms of like what they actually are moving in the stores, like the sales breakdown, I think they're doing really well with the Mini.
Oh,
But
maybe not.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but that was my recollection. Anyway, I was just going to say you're right. They didn't talk a lot about it, but they did something weird. So they come out with the Mini 3. They add Touch ID. I don't even know what else. Cyril, what else has changed on the Mini 3?
Well, I would need to look at the actual spec sheet, but they did say it has. Yeah,
It's really not a lot. It's the Touch
Yeah,
ID.
it's got
And
the
it's in
Touch ID.
gold.
It's still got there's a gold version, but it's still got the 802.11n Wi-Fi, and it has a lower megapixel camera.
Yeah.
So it's not quite. I think the last Mini was like basically the same as the Air, just smaller.
Yeah.
But this one is a little bit less nice.
But have you noticed this, Jordan? So the iPad Mini lineup, right? Just the Mini, is the original iPad Mini at like $299 or something, where it's a cheap one,
It's crazy.
and then the iPad 2 or iPad Mini 2, and then the iPad Mini 3, and then each one of those you have different amounts of RAM, you
Yep.
have different configurations in terms of networking, whether have 3G, 4G, and then I guess different colors as well, right? So the number of iPad 3s that Apple is stocking and selling is like, I don't know, 20? How, I mean,
not. I hate to be that guy because
Yeah.
ultimately I always made fun of these guys for years, but this is so totally not something Steve would have done.
No, I said Steve Jobs is at 7,200 RPM in the grave.
Oh my gosh! I mean, when they show the lineup on screen, you're right. It's in fact, I can tell you right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5, and then you include the fact that they still sell the old iPad, the original iPad. But it's like they still sell the iPad Air and the iPad Air 2 and all 3 versions of the Mini, and it's like I can only imagine that the lower end Mini, which is at $249, is just a straight up education play. The existing iPad Air, which is at $400, is just the cheapest version of that larger screen size without getting to the 2. But then why are they still selling the Mini 2 for no reason? And it's a weird thing to see on an Apple website. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, it is, and you know the other thing though is their competition is Samsung. They've identified that clearly with the release of the new iPhones that are the larger sizes and even going as large as the Galaxy Note and all of that. And then it's the Android ecosystem, which is like a million other choices. And you know, there's a certain extent to which like you do well if you provide people with more choices of your stuff that they can choose from, because you just get more coverage. Like it totally
Right.
destroys the simplicity that Steve Jobs had and where people are talking about that one product and they want to buy it, and you get that wonderful sort of marketing mojo from that. But there's a way in which this makes sense. It's just weird to see Apple taking that approach. It's because it's so not Apple to do that.
No, I agree. So let's move on, lest we be criticized for being
Oh, that's going to happen
Apple
anyway.
lovers.
Yeah.
It's going to happen anyway. Google unleashes Android 5.0 Lollipop on new Nexus devices. So we have, the Nexus 6 and what's the other one? Nexus 9. So we got a new tablet and a new phone. The Nexus 6 is big. It's a 5.96-inch display, which is, I think, a little larger than the iPhone 6 Plus, larger than the Galaxy Note. Yes, it's about the biggest phablet we've seen.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest one we have seen. Unless there's some obscure Chinese thing that I've never heard of. It's
There probably is.
there almost certainly is, but it's the biggest
and
one.
then the Nexus 9, which
Is this too big for you, Jeff?
I don't know. I don't think it's
Hold
too
up
big.
your
It's too
massive
expensive.
hands for the you can't tell. There's no scale.
Those big
It's just
man
completely
hands.
useless. But the dude's like Michael Phelps, so Anyway,
But yeah, no, it's the price is what turned me off. It's like I don't really mind size as long as something can fit in my pocket. But the fact that this is what, like $650 off contract, which compared to the Nexus 5, which is I think 300 or 350, it's sort of going against the grain of kind of affordable flagship Nexus devices.
yeah. Well, and you know, my oldest son saved up his birthday money. I wrote about this recently, and got himself a OnePlus One for $350, and it's a 5.5-inch screen with the Snapdragon 801, not the 805 that's in this. Lower end, lower spec setup, but it's like $350, and this is a lot more money. It's very premium. I mean, it's actually cheaper than the iPhone 6 Plus.
It's actually not that premium. Like the highest storage capacity is 64 gigs, which you would think, they would at least have the option of 128 gig, especially since they sort of remain steadfastly opposed to adding any kind of expandable storage to these things. So that's another thing I don't quite get out of it. It sort of keeps sort of mid-range capacities, but then seems to be a very high-end product. So
Yeah, so Cyril, you said it's 6.5 ounces and zero 0.4 inches, which sounds just monstrously thick. The Nexus 6 is both heavier and thicker than the iPhone 6 Plus, though not by very much. The iPhone is 6.07 ounces and 0.28 inches thick. That seems like by very much on the thickness.
Yeah, the weight. Yeah, I guess.
it's curved on the back though. It sort of thins out on the edges, so it's
Right.
not like a completely flat.
That's pretty
I
chunky.
mean, yeah, thickness for a phone though, when you're like looking at a fraction like a tenth of an inch, it's I mean, like the the iPhone 6 is thicker than the iPhone 5, but after trying the iPhone 6, I don't feel like my iPhone 5 is really thick or even that much thicker at all. So I mean, it's going to be in your pocket anyway, and it's
Yeah, I don't think this would be in my pocket. I don't know. I was interested to see what they were going to do, and this looks okay. But one thing that I want to, I guess we need to see it tested. I feel like, because I'm not sure the display density is PPI is really high. It's 2560 by 1440. There are some phones out there like LG G3 that have a really high PPI, but they don't always have the best color reproduction and contrast, and they're pushing the envelope here quite a bit. So I'm kind of worried about how good this screen is. They have a great track record on the Nexus devices, but I'm worried about that. The other thing is the SoC is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 805. So it's got a little bit amped up version of the Crate core. It's got a better image signal processor and faster GPU, but it's not a revolution compared to like the 801 that's out there in a lot of devices now. And it's not. It just doesn't feel like they're getting, other than doing it with core count, because it's quad core instead of dual. They're not getting to where Apple has gone in terms of per core per thread performance. So I don't know. It doesn't. I was looking for something that was a little more of a moving the ball on the SoC front forward than this, and it's not real exciting to me.
Well, one thing to remember also is that Nexus devices sell usually without a contract. I don't know how much the 6 is going to cost, but like usually they try to undercut the Apple devices by a little bit.
I think it was Jeff. You said like 650.
I think it's 600 or 650. Is what I
Yeah,
remember seeing.
which is not cheap for a Nexus. It's less than. Well, there's 32 gig or 64 gig of storage, and the iPhones, even the 6 Plus starts at 16. So
Yeah.
it's maybe a little. It's a little less than that in terms of the config that would be plausibly good. Because I assume no one wants a 16 gig iPhone 6 Plus. This could be a little bit cheaper, but it's not a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Nexus 9 is interesting, almost solely because it has a Tegra K1 with the 64-bit Denver CPUs in it.
Yeah, that was unexpected. And I hadn't heard anything from Nvidia about it, or really the rumors hadn't really. mentioned that much.
I mean, I think the rumors said Tegra K1 maybe, but which was
Yeah, not 64-bit.
yeah, and so when this is going to hit the market shortly, we'll see our first benchmarks of the Project Denver CPU. And that's going to be interesting because that Denver CPU should be really great at things that NVIDIA knows people are going to benchmark, like JavaScript browser benchmarks. It'll just be wonderfully optimized for that. But then the question is whether its performance trails off when you're off the beaten path running code that is not familiar, because the way that CPU works with the binary translation stuff, it's going to be less good on unfamiliar instruction sequences if it can't do a good job of extracting parallelism when it's reordering those. So I want to get my hands on one. I may have to go out and get my hands on one of these tablets just so I can poke and prod at it. And Jeff, maybe we'll do some slow-mo recording of like interface transitions and various things within apps so that we can get apps that aren't instrumented, we could get good performance numbers. I think there's an opportunity there to find a performance result that's very different from what you get from your standard benchmark suite, which we know NVIDIA is going to have optimized very well.
So, hand to God, my cab driver this morning was explaining to me why he thought the Nexus 9 might be good at parallelism. I kid you not.
Seriously?
This whole long spiel. No, that's not true.
Okay, what the hell? Well, we're going back to the...
Can you imagine the cab driver? Have you seen the new Nexus 9? It's going to be great at parallelism. Speaking of which, what I've been particularly impressed with are some of the software features that I don't know if it's specific to Lollipop or if this is just a continuation of features that have already existed on Android, particularly for tablets, but it's like the guest features where you can... from the home screen, log in as a guest and have sort of a sandbox to play in to surf the web or do various things, but that doesn't affect the main account. That's so useful, particularly for kids. People have kids.
Yeah, in fact, I think you can have it's full-fledged accounts, multiple accounts.
Yeah, you can have more than one. Yeah.
And why Apple doesn't have that on iPads, I have no idea.
Unclear to me.
Yeah, but it's the right thing, and yeah, I got a couple accounts on my Nexus 7. My wife and I use it, and she can have all her books on there to read, and we can switch back and forth. It's great. So, duh. Anyway, so Cyril, Android Lollipop is coming too. That was part of this announcement.
Yeah, so it's going to be on all the new devices, obviously, and it's also coming to the previous gen Nexus devices, so the 5, 7, and 10, and then Google Play Edition devices. Google didn't really quote like a specific time frame for this. They just said in the coming weeks, so maybe it'll be like staggered or something. But hopefully by the end of the year, I would say.
Yeah, and then the last thing they announced is this Nexus Player, which is Asus built this. It's like an Apple TV Android-y thing.
Well, it's like a Fire TV, like
right.
Amazon released something very similar recently.
But pure Android, and there's an optional. Well, there's a remote that comes with it. It's a little disc that you plug into your TV with HDMI, I guess. There's a remote that looks like the Apple TV remote, kind of, and then there's an optional gamepad. So,
which is sold separately.
Is this in the category of something people actually want?
I don't know. Here's the thing: is the gamepad could be interesting if it worked with Steam game streaming, which is now a thing, right? But that's tough because your gamepad pretty much has to be compatible with an Xbox 360 controllers in order for most games to work. And so I don't know, maybe extra software could make it go. And I've never heard anything about Valve releasing a client for Steam game streaming on Android. So I don't know anything about that. But there are opportunities for third parties because there are good Android streaming. I'm trying to think of the name of the one that's out there. Android streaming implementations.
OnLive?
No. It's from your PC.
No, it's a local one. I know which one he's
right.
talking about.
And the one whose name I can't remember is pretty much you can tell like the early NVIDIA Shield stuff had some of the same interface cues. Clearly, NVIDIA licensed their software for Shield, and so. There are possibilities that you could sit in your living room and use that gamepad to play PC games. And Jordan, I think that makes sense. There's also the other possibility is the OnLive, the NVIDIA
Wait,
Grid.
I'm sorry. So what you're saying is this product makes sense if it has functionalities that we're pretty sure it actually doesn't have.
No, I think it can. I think there are Android applications that will do that. It's just a question of building the support for this specific controller into them and getting it all working.
Well, I mean, honestly, the controller looks just like an Xbox controller, just with the analogs, the left analog stick and D-pad, switched. Like it's got the X, Y, B, A buttons. It's got the like the big home button, the two side buttons.
But I like
select and start.
there are analog triggers because that's like extremely crucial.
I would be shocked if it didn't have analog triggers.
Okay, well, if it gets close enough to the Xbox controller, then you're in business, right? But if it's too cheaped out, then it's not going to be as interesting. But yeah, Jordan, the other possibility is an OnLive or a game streaming service, and it could be a client for anything. I mean, it's just an SoC that's going to decode H.264 video, and I mean, it could be a client for any of the services out there now. So there's a lot of
core Atom chip that's in it. So
really?
Those devices on Windows can stream. Steamy. I'm just looking at the specs now. It was a 1.8 gigahertz quad core Intel Atom.
It's pretty beefy then. Bay Trail.
A gig of RAM, 8 gigs of internal storage, and a micro USB port. It's unclear whether or not you can actually attach storage with this, but I actually like this. This is, it seems like a good basic, something to give somebody if you don't want them to get like a Roku or something. I probably have a little more faith in Google's sort of app ecosystem for a device like this, provided they keep
That's
it
an interesting
around.
point.
Yeah, and
Or the Apple TV. I mean, the Apple TV is pretty terrible. I bought one, and it's like they haven't really done anything interesting with the software in like a year and a half. It's kind of a bad product, and it doesn't really work that well either.
No, the only thing I've ever liked the Apple TV for, my dad has one, is that if you have an Apple device, you just walk in, and if you have a photo or a video or you want to share your screen, that's pretty seamless, the whole AirPlay thing. But it's...
Well, it's supposed to
it.
be, but for me, like sometimes it doesn't show up, so I have to disconnect my iPhone from the Wi-Fi and then reconnect it, and then it'll detect the AirPlay thing. It's just, I don't know, it just seems a little shaky. Like it is very convenient when it does work, but they haven't. I don't think they've like spent as much time on it as they should have.
Well, that's entirely true, just because Apple has not given a lot of love to Apple TV.
yeah,
But I will say
this is just $99 too, which I guess Apple.
Well,
TV
that's
is
the
a
point,
similar
and that's
price,
what
but-
I have to wonder is, I mean, you talk about consumer options now. You have Apple TV if you've got an Apple or you're an Apple person or whatever. You've got Roku, which has been around for a while, and Roku has, of course, they're in Walmart and they got all these different versions, and they're trying really hard. You've got the Chromecast. Which Chromecast has some Apple some AirPlay-esque features, I think, where you can like share your screen or share an Android device screen. You've got the Fire TV, and then you've got now the Nexus player. I mean, it just is all of a sudden become this crowded space of I guess my question is, take OnLive out of the equation. Does anyone want to play Android games on their TV?
Probably not us. Lots of other people who play like.
Well, I'm not
Angry
saying us.
Birds
I'm
and
saying
stuff,
does
yeah.
anyone?
Oh no, I think that this eventually means big trouble for the consoles, because this is part of the Google Play ecosystem. It's not just one device, as you mentioned. There's a lot of possible devices. SoCs get better, in like once a year they get a pretty nice new generation, right? The graphics on them are really good. I mean, look at the Tegra K1 with the Denver stuff. I think we're going to see really, really nice performance in every way. And NVIDIA is going to put Maxwell into the next one, and it will be even more powerful. And that's a pretty powerful GPU. So the hardware will get better quickly, and the App Store is there. The ecosystem is there. NVIDIA is kind of building its own little kind of shield ecosystem on top of the Google Play Store, but it all integrates. And you're going to own all the games, and you can upgrade the hardware. It's cheap. You can put it wherever you want. You can log into an account multiple times. You know how it works. And just play. I think that the model of the paying a lot for a big console and then having it for a long time and then basically losing everything when the next generation comes, like Microsoft and Sony are doing. I think that's going to be looking really ugly in a couple of years.
I would say this within the life cycle of these consoles, i.e., the 5, 6, 7 years that they drag out of these things. In 5 years, you make a good point, which is, we're not going to be looking to the large consoles to accomplish our gaming firepower, given how fast things are accelerating. I don't want to hover on this too long. We got some other things to hit on. I'll just mention this quickly, unless there's something really interesting I want to highlight. Biggest ever iPhone launch. Q4 Apple financials came out, and obviously they're talking about record iPhone sales. Still iPad sales in decline, which is obviously the reason they keep updating these things every year. And then what I thought was interesting, guys, was their continued increase in market share for PCs.
Yeah, they're looking strong, and I think this is in here in part because it provides some interesting sort of color to what we were kind of talking about Apple going ahead and like aping Samsung's phone sizes, and it's worked. Right, so
right.
It worked, and the other thing is just the next story that we have on the list is that Intel also reported its best ever revenue and record shipments for Q3, and there's not much to dwell on there other than to say that Apple and Intel are doing well at the same time. I think we're over with the narrative that the PC's in trouble because mobile is ascendant, and I think
well, actually, the Apple results kind of disprove that the mobile is ascendant thing, because the iPad shipments are down, right?
And the Mac shipments are up.
Yeah.
And so we're getting people are getting a sense of what they want out of a mobile computer, which apparently is a phablet, and then what else they want is a laptop or desktop to go with it. And so Intel's doing well, Apple's doing well, and then. The next story is AMD suffers falling revenue, announces 7% staff cut. And so that was kind of the setup. Yeah. So this is interesting. Jordan, since it's been a while since the last podcast, I don't think we talked about the CEO change that happened at AMD. Rory Reid stepped down. Lisa Su took over. Lisa Su has been running a lot of AMD for a while. She was handpicked by Rory Reid, and we kind of wrote the story about. I heard this rumor from a really good source at CES that Lisa Su was going to be taking over the CEO spot, and so when it happened, I did not think that it was just because of tough times at AMD. But it was about a week before these numbers came out, and now the numbers came out. And in the context of how everybody else did, AMD having revenue go down was rough. And it wasn't, Cyril, it wasn't a big drop off in revenue. It just wasn't an increase like everybody else had, right?
Well, I mean, their revenue was down compared to the previous quarter and compared to the previous year, and they also said, next quarter, this quarter, fourth quarter, is going to be down sequentially when, it's the holiday quarter. It's usually the strongest of the year, so it's kind of, the one positive.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, he's right.
What's that?
Go ahead.
I misread the chart. You're right.
Right. The one positive thing is that they did not lose money. Like they had a small profit, I think in double digits. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, compared to the past 3 quarters, that's an improvement. But revenue is down, and yeah, so that's not ideal.
Yeah, it looks like the revenue was down about 1.43 billion in quarter 3 of 2013. Sorry, 1.46 billion in quarter 3 of 2013, 1.43 billion in quarter 3 of 2014. So we weren't down. That's a lot to me. But it's not that much of their business overall. The thing is that we've kind of been looking at this for a while, and so NVIDIA has GM204, the Maxwell stuff, out now, and AMD they released Tonga, but then we don't really know what's coming yet from them. But it looks like the rumors are it's early next year that we see new stuff from them on the GPU side. The CPU side, we know they're struggling. And it appears that they are continuing to cede market share to Intel, which is partly what this is about. And it's 2016 before their new CPU cores are ready. And so, they are going to iterate. They're going to have, I think it's Excavators, the next generation with the Carrizo APU, and all this stuff is coming. But you can probably expect that they're not going to even come close to catching Intel on CPU performance until the new core is ready. And so this next year is another difficult year for them on the CPU front. On the GPU front, they're right now competitive, and they need to get better there. And so it's rough until 2016, and the transition year next year. It's going to be hard. It looks like it's going to be hard, and I think that's what we saw from both these numbers and the forecast. And Cyril, there are two other things about this that I thought were interesting. You mentioned their semi-custom business, which is basically making Xbox and PlayStation 4 designs, like the chips for those. They're going to make ongoing revenue from those console chips. But it was a total of $108 million this last quarter that they got from that. And
that's their operating profit, I think, not the total
operating
revenue.
income.
Yeah, operating income, but not total revenue.
Oh, not total revenue. Okay. Oh, we don't have the total revenue then.
Right. It's probably in there somewhere if you scroll down to the actual.
Okay.
Spreadsheet
it's not
part.
that far from. I don't think they spend that much on it, honestly. I don't think it's a big part of their overall business. That was the point I was going to make. It just I think it's the lion's share of what they do is GPUs and CPUs for for PCs. So they need to do well there. That's kind of the point I had. And then the other thing is the staff cut.
Yeah, 7% reduction.
Yeah,
I think by the end of the year.
And this comes on the heels of a lot of 5%, 15%, 10% reductions that have happened over the past few years. So it's not as big a cut as it would have been if they'd done it several years ago because there are fewer people there. But it's still a lot of people at this company. So
this is all well and good, but they just diagnosed a doctor in New York City with Ebola, and he's in a hospital about 3 blocks from me. So I'm going to go now.
Here.
And hide.
We'll switch your stream shot there.
Yeah, put me back into 8 mode because I gotta get survival on my own ass. Holy cow! That's my segue. to unless there's anything more to say about that.
No, we're just sad now.
Just sad. Okay. Jeez. Now I'm wondering if I made a mistake coming to New York City.
Is bringing us joy though, so it's
which one is that? Oh, the monkey. Okay.
That's not a monkey. No. That's an ape.
Wait, which one am I seeing now? Because I
you know the difference.
There it is. Is that an ape? Yeah. Okay. All right. Excellent. By the way, quick shout out to our viewers in the chat room currently. Good to have you with us.
Should we take some questions?
Sure. Let's take some questions. I will field questions.
We have to stall now because we're saying we're going to take questions. So give us questions.
But there's a delay.
And now we wait until people hear that we want questions, and then they type them.
Right.
So maybe we should talk about.
By
the way, Scott, you're
scramble to try to find answers on the internet.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you'll see. By the way, Scott, your son is quite a ringleader in the comments, and I don't know, but I kind of feel there's a little bit of nepotism happening. So.
He's like mod me in the comment or the chat room. He's like mod me and so I'm like okay, and then he's just taking over. So
he's taking over. He's taking over the chat room empire.
He made a meme out of me for some
reason. He made a meme out of Cyril. Yes, Cyril is unamused.
There's a Cyril meme.
I resent that.
Cyril is unamused.
I'm even less amused now.
Now we'll change that that will be Jordan's picture there. No, that's not right.
Which one did you change
We'll
to?
just put it to.
I like the Drake. Put Drake back up. That was kind of fun.
That's going to be hard to find now. Because he's been.
Oh, don't pretend like it wasn't your Windows background.
There we go.
There you go.
Jordan and then Drake. I need to get the Jordan picture and the picture of Drake, and we put them next to each other, and that will be
I don't think
Jordan
we have
Drake.
any listener mail, actually. Let me see if I can find any. Someone asked in the chat room. That was their question. So ask whatever question you want, folks. Do we have any listener mail?
Nobody
Very
has
helpful.
any questions, so this chat has been very, very useful. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I have some listener mail questions from the email, but I just don't feel like it.
All right. Well, what do we have? We have. So let's talk about this. This is Jeff. This is your story.
Yes, it is.
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare needs 6 gigabytes of RAM and 55 gigabytes of storage.
Yeah, and it turns out the 6 gigabytes of RAM thing is not entirely unusual. Watch Dogs has the same requirement, and so does the new Assassin's Creed game. Although there are two, and I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Unity that has a 6 gig requirement, which probably related to the new consoles, which each have 8 gigs of shared memory between the CPU and GPU. The more surprising one here is the 55 gigabyte install size, which is huge. The last Call of Duty game was only 40 gigs. So
Only.
either they're putting a whole lot of uncompressed audio into this one, or we're going to get higher resolution textures and some higher quality art assets. And the latest trailer that they've released actually does. It looks fairly pretty. If you're into the whole Michael Bay explosions everywhere
And
kind
and
of thing.
Kevin
Doesn't really show
Spacey.
much gameplay, but it does actually look like a well rendered game. I'll say that much for it. And it's got some Keanu Reeves looking dude on the in the trailer, so it looks like it will be a game that maybe uses a little bit more of the PC than we've seen from previous games. Although Scott, you played the last Call of Duty game, and I remember you were saying some good things about how it looked and the quality of the textures and the graphics overall.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they're going to have a massive budget and keep riding this thing until it dies, they might as well make some pretty graphics along the way. And the like for 4K displays, some games just the texture quality, the model quality is not sufficient to really give you anything, show you anything all that good. And the whatever the not Black Ops, what the heck was the last Call of Duty, whatever it was, Ghosts. They put some like you could see the budget, right? It was actually as they got late into the game, some of the texture quality went down. I think like you could see like, well, they were rushing out like finishing, but the early levels and stuff are very polished. And when I saw that this needed 6 gigs of RAM, I was happy. It does mean that like we're changing our system guides so that we're going to recommend 8 gigs as a minimum now for gaming systems. But you know, it's time. I mean, that everybody should be running 64-bit OS, and this gives us more goodness. Hopefully, it's not just bigger textures and models, but more complex worlds, smarter AI, all the things that you want. The thing is just,
I'm sorry, did you just say smarter AI about a Call of Duty game?
yeah, well,
Like
wouldn't
the
you want
detection
that in a Call
algorithm
of
where it
Duty
detects
game?
that
Yeah,
invisible line in the sand that you cross before the enemies start appearing?
yeah. That's the worst. Anyway, look, if they're gonna have whatever hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever they spend to make these games, then I'm happy to see this kind of thing happening.
This someone actually just brought this up in the channel. The actual minimum video card requirements for the new Assassin's Creed game, which is the Unity one, is a GeForce GTX 680 or a Radeon HD 7970, and that's the minimum. The recommended is the GTX 780 or an R9 290X,
Yeah, that's insane.
that's the steepest I've seen. I mean, the Call of Duty is like a GeForce, what is it, a GTS 450 with 1 gig of RAM, so that's
I don't understand that. The consoles are like a Radeon HD 7850 or less. Like that's what they've got, right? That's what they're working. Xbox One is like one of those that's got like a problem. It's been underclocked. And they won't run on a PC if it doesn't have a GTX 680.
I guess it's even got like a separate thing at the bottom, supported video cards at time of release.
Right.
GTX 680 or better, GTX 7. Well, they do say 700 series. Um, and then the R9 200 series. So presumably, like the R7, well, I guess not the R7 stuff,
No,
but
that
the
but
lower end,
that
like a GTX 760 would work.
yeah, that's I don't know. Then again, I'm happy to see if this looks beautiful. I'm happy to see a game that actually maybe takes advantage of the higher end stuff for real. So I don't want to complain too much, but I kind of wonder, like, is this going to be the case where the PC version is really just a clear notch or two above the console version? Or is it
No,
just
it's
poorly
Assassin's
optimized? Right. I don't know.
Or they got something wrong when they're actually doing their minimum system requirements.
Yeah. I don't know. Cyril, what are you surfing the web there? What are you watching?
No, I was trying to rejigger the Skype window to. Yeah, never mind.
I know we can see what he's doing, so it's hilarious. Anyway.
I'm actually watching the Assassin's Creed Unity E3 World Premiere cinematic trailer, and it's legit.
Looks good.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were doing French Revolution. I'm a bit behind the ball on this one. But it looks so good.
Those E3,
I mean, to be fair, it's pre-rendered stuff.
I was gonna say those E3 trailers do look good. Then the game comes out and you're like, what? So
one can hope, right?
One can hope. One right here is currently hoping. So we'll see.
Well, Scott, you just keep hoping for all of us.
I do, Jordan. I do.
Carry that torch. CPU startup claims to have achieved 3 times IPC gains with VISC architecture. Huh?
Yeah, this happened today. This Silicon Valley startup with some really interesting investors and quite a bit of funding came out of stealth mode at the Lindley Microprocessor Conference and presented what it says is a new architecture for CPUs, and it's positioning itself against RISC and CISC, which are architectural approaches to CPU design, both of which have kind of been adopted in various ways into what we now have in most modern processors. And I need to talk to them. I haven't done it yet. I need to get on the horn with these folks and ask some questions. But what they're claiming is that the VISC or virtual, I think it's basically virtual instruction set command, will allow for scaling of instructions per clock, which is really per clock performance hasn't gone up in CPUs very quickly. The Intel stuff, they're on a 5 to 10 to maybe 15% a year cadence where they get a little bit of gain each time they introduce something new, but it's modest. And they're probably the best at right now. And so the idea that a new architecture could get us 4x, 3x instruction per clock gains is a big deal. And what they're doing is they are kind of virtualizing. They have a software layer that sits in between a number of cores in hardware and then presents a smaller number of cores to the OS and software. And that layer in between presumably breaks down individual threads into, like a single thread, into multiple sub-threads under the covers and executes them in a way that then basically you get faster execution on the hardware or the software thread that at the top than you would otherwise. And I've completely lost us now. But the idea is kind of similar to there were some rumors a while back about reverse hyperthreading or reverse SMT, where they, Jordan, you're familiar with hyperthreading, where it's 2 threads per hardware core.
Sure.
The idea here is that you have a smaller number of threads that you expose to software, and then you have more happening under the hardware. But the end result, and this is the thing that you really want, which is that the thread that is slow can utilize multiple cores to get faster execution, even if it's a single thread. And that is really nice if it's true, because multi-threaded software development is difficult, and we have seen in games and all sorts of other applications that really taking advantage of lots of cores hasn't happened as much as you would like. There are categories of software like video encoding or rendering graphics where you have embarrassingly parallel problems and it's easy to do it. But there are lots of other things where multi-core, multi-threaded, it's hard to take advantage. And so these guys seem to think that they have produced something that will solve that problem or address it, and they're claiming it's revolutionary. Now, the skepticism comes in here because they actually, Jordan, did a demo today that I was not there, I did not see it, but they have a chip that's working as a proof of conference that they called a dual virtual core VISC system on a chip prototype that was meant to show the improvements in instructions per clock that you can get. And so they're not just sort of hyping something that isn't real. As far as we could tell, at least, they have a product. And the idea is that they're going to license that product or help co-design CPUs as part of a licensing arrangement for other companies in the industry. And they're claiming that because of the way this works, they can be compatible with existing software. So you have a software that has one or a few threads or even many, and it will work with this architecture, and it will be naturally sped up by the fact that it works with it. The thing is that the claims sound almost too good to be true, and so the skepticism for me comes in because a lot of this talk is about SoCs, and then you think about ARM cores and things like that, and I could see achieving additional instructions per clock compared to, or maybe by aggregating, some modern ARM cores. Some of them don't even do out-of-order instruction execution. The ones that do, they don't incorporate nearly as many tricks, as many architectural resources as a big Intel x86 chip does in order to extract instruction level of parallelism from a stream of instructions in a thread. The question that I have is, can they go and aggregate something bigger like a Haswell core and get more IPC out of that thing? It seems to me if you're doing it with Cortex A9s that's nice, but it's not necessarily the same type of achievement as if you're able to do it with big cores that are already employing all kinds of other tricks to achieve high IPC. So it remains to be seen. So the company is named Soft Machines, and Jordan, the really interesting thing about them, I mentioned their investors. They're looking to license and co-develop stuff, and their investors include Samsung Ventures, AMD, and a company called Mubadala. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's the Abu Dhabi development company, the Abu Dhabi government, the company that owns Global Foundries, which bought AMD's fabs and has tons of money. And
Right.
so there are a number of other Indian and Russian companies that I didn't mention in the write-up that are in the press release that we linked that also invested. So it's not just those three companies, but we know who those companies are. We know the players, and they could be the first in line if this is something that CPU companies want to license in order to really speed up their stuff. And if it works as advertised, and if it works on better cores that are already employing a lot of other tricks to get high IPC, then it will be truly interesting. But I think it's really too early to know yet, and I'm hoping that we will find out more. In fact, Jordan, if we're really interested, maybe we can get my friend David Cantor to come on the podcast. He works at Lindley Group, who was holding this conference, and I'm sure that he's all over this. So we may consider that.
He'd be great for that.
Yeah.
All righty. Moving right along, let's see what's next here on the agenda. Samsung's 840 EVO. It's so funny. I heard about this a bunch. It's been a bit of a news item here. Fixing slow reads with old data. There's performance issues with the Evo, Jeff, and what has Samsung done to fix that?
Right. So some background on this. Basically, what happened with the Evo and possibly other Samsung SSDs. We'll get to that in a minute. This Reader started detecting, I guess, kind of end of August, early September. A couple of threads started up in online forums where people were noticing that files that had been on their drive for a long time had really slow read speeds. You know, like in kind of the double-digit megabytes per second, so slower than a hard drive. And they discovered that if they overwrote those files, then they would be fast again. They'd get full performance. And you can test this with HDTech, and some enterprise encoders actually came out with a custom utility that will actually go and measure the read speed of all the files on a drive. And there was, these threads grew and grew and grew, and eventually Samsung acknowledged that there was a problem with the firmware on the 840 Evo. We don't have too many specifics. You can read the story for sort of their exact description of what happens, but basically they're saying that the drive was performing a read retry process aggressively, and that's what was slowing down the read speeds. And what it sounds like happened is with flash memory, they store data using an electrical charge that's contained inside individual memory cells. And over time, especially when there's activity in the surrounding cells, the voltage of that cell can change. And what it sounds like is the algorithms that they have to compensate for that voltage drift weren't working properly, which is why data that had been on the drive for a while, and Samsung is telling us anything that's been on the drive for older than a month is prone to this slowdown. So how they addressed it is it's actually a two-part process. They released a firmware update, which, according to Samsung, will eliminate this problem going forward. And then they also released part of the update process is a performance restoration tool that will it looks like it actually goes through and kind of just rewrites everything on the drive. But they're saying that it conditions all of the cells on the SSD, and actually can take over an hour on a large enough drive. So it runs that after it flashes the firmware to the new revision, and is a non-destructive process. So you don't lose any of your data. And so far, it looks like that's resolving the problem for people with the 840 Evo. We had Bruno, who is our developer, who does a lot of the coding work behind the scenes at Tech Report. He actually has an Evo in his personal system, and he sort of sacrificed it for us, and did notice an improvement in read performance. The interesting thing about this story is that in the original threads, there were some reports of the old 840 series being affected as well. And like the Evo, that has 3-bit TLC NAND, which puts an extra bit into each cell, which makes actually determining the correct voltage more difficult. So it would be a kind of memory that would be more prone to problems associated with voltage drift and compensating for it. And now Samsung has told us a couple of times now that the 840 series is not affected, but there are still these reports of people having slow read speeds with their drives. So we've sort of followed up with Samsung and are still waiting to hear back from them about exactly how they determined that the 840 series is not affected by this bug. And they were also adamant that the upcoming 840 Evo, which they've talked about a little bit but really haven't given us too many details on, is coming at some point, and they're telling us that it won't be affected at all by this bug. So if you have an Evo, go get the performance restoration tool, apply it. That's about it.
It seems like it's a pretty good recovery on Samsung's part.
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. The complications right now are that the tool is Windows only. There's not a solution for Mac users or Linux users. That's coming later this month, I believe. It did take them a few weeks to get on this, but it wasn't sort of it's a serious problem, obviously, but it wasn't like some of the firmware issues we saw in the past where people were losing data, drives were bricking. So this is a problem, and Samsung has had little firmware issues with performance in the past. Remember the 470 series, or I'm not sure if that was before they started putting series at the end of every SSD name, but that drive had some issues with sort of longer term performance. So it's not a big deal. I don't think they've dealt with it. The question is whether or not this is a larger problem for the 840 series, and sort of, I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. People didn't lose data. Even when they suffered the slow read speeds, it was possible to restore performance. Every major SSD vendor has had firmware issues. This is certainly an embarrassing problem, and one that kind of highlights the weaknesses of 3-bit memory, or TLC NAND. It is more sensitive, which means that Samsung does have to be better in terms of error correction algorithms and things like that. So I think it's a little bit embarrassing for Samsung that there was sort of an algorithm failure on their side with something like this. But they seem to have dealt with it well, and we haven't actually heard any reports of problems with the update tool either. It seems to be working for everybody who's tried it. I had one email from a reader who was unable to apply it to multiple Evos on his system after he had flashed one of them. So it looks like maybe there are a few little issues, but it seemed like they've taken care of the problem reasonably well. It just sort of remains to be seen whether or not the 840 series is actually affected by this.
Right.
And then sort of what happens with the 850 Evo, which is, I think, a drive that a lot of people are eagerly anticipating, and it'll be interesting to see if the problems with the 840 give people pause.
So moving on, sometime between the last podcast we did and this podcast, one of our editors decided to get off his butt and install the Windows 10 technical preview. That editor is here with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Cyril Kowalski.
That's not enough clapping. I'm not doing this.
Sorry.
It's not
Cyril
enough
is
clapping.
unimpressed.
That's
Wow.
Come on.
I can do double time.
All right, that's too much.
Now he's not doing this because it's too much.
I'm
Windows
here to
10.
entertain.
Windows 10. What an operating system. It's
All
no,
right,
I put it in a VM and sort of played with it for a little bit, for about a week. It's nice. I honestly, I was surprised by some of the comments to the article that I posted. Like, some people are like, oh, it's, it doesn't look that good, or it's, there a lot of folks, I guess, just want Windows 7, I guess, or just want to stick with Windows 7. But honestly, I've been using Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 since they came out, basically. And, Windows 10 feels, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. It feels like what Windows 8 should have been, essentially. It gives you modern UI, all that, that app sort of repertoire that you have access to. Only it's actually usable now on a desktop PC with, a mouse and keyboard. You can actually have it in, have your modern UI apps in Windows and sort of minimize them, maximize them, have multiple ones on the same screen at once without having the weird sort of docking thing that Windows 8 has, where you have to split the screen between two different two different modern UI apps, and you can't really, I don't think there's a way in Windows 8 to have more than two on the same screen at once. So anyway, it's got that, and then as the on top of that, it's basically you don't have to use the start screen at all. It has the start menu. It has it doesn't, basically there's no situation where it throws you into full screen mode that there's no obvious way to get out of, which was a big problem with Windows 8. I saw a video of someone who had gotten a new Windows 8 PC and didn't know how to close modern UI applications. So every time that person wanted to close a modern UI app, they had to turn off the computer, because there's no X button, at least there wasn't in Windows 8. You have to get to do the weird sort of corner swipes or whatever to get the charms bar in there to get to the start screen, or you have to press the start key, but that's not necessarily obvious. So everything works in a way that is immediately makes sense if you're coming from years or possibly decades of using Windows, Mac OS. So it's it's a big improvement in that sense. And I think Microsoft, we said this last time, but I think they're targeting this at businesses, corporate customers who want to upgrade their Windows 7 PCs and don't necessarily want to have to train new employees to use modern UI. So it's yeah, it sort of harks back to the Windows 7 days while keeping the modern UI stuff around, and it adds some features on top of that, which you got the task view, which is very handy. It's it's been a while. Microsoft should have introduced some sort of virtual desktop thing sooner, I think, but it's nice that it's finally there and it works reasonably well. It would be nice, like with the latest builds that they released, I think this week, they added animations. So if you're when you're switching from one desktop to another, from one virtual desktop to another, it actually, like, you see a sliding animation, so it sort of makes sense. It was a little bit jarring in the original build when there was no animation at all. You sort of, suddenly the windows were different, so you didn't really realize what was going on. Yeah, so it's, I like where they're going with this. Everything sort of works as it should, more or less. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what little refinements they make, and how it improves in a few months. I guess they have about 8 months or so to get it ready for production, or some, maybe a little bit less. I think the final release is supposed to be in mid-May of next year. So yeah, pretty encouraging.
Would you build a PC, if you're building a PC now? Would you install this and run it until then, or would you stick with something else?
Honestly, I don't know that I would, because well, modern UI apps tend to crash a lot. Uh, I don't, if you're not using those, does it matter? Probably not. But it does feel a little bit rough around the edges. I had it sort of get a little bit wonky a couple times. Um, if you don't want to pay for a Windows license, um, they're going to keep improving it. They're going to keep, squashing those bugs. So, it might be a little shaky for the first, few weeks or the first couple months, but eventually it'll get better. It'll get to a stage where, it's almost production ready. And if you're just building a PC to play games, then you don't need like a ton of stability necessarily. As long as you can run a game for a few hours without it crashing, it should be okay. But at the same time, I don't know that there might be like some compatibility issues. I didn't try any games on it myself, so some games might not be happy, or like there might be problems with drivers or something. So I don't know. Honestly, it's it doesn't hurt to try it. It's free. Anyone can grab it.
Right.
You just have to give your email address, basically. Or I think some people don't even have to do that.
And they're updating it via Windows Update, right? So if you installed this preview, like they rolled out some changes this last week, and you get those, right? So you don't have to do multiple preview installs.
Nope. It just updates itself. It's not exactly, I thought it was Windows Update, but when I actually went to do it, it's like it's like in the same section as Windows Update, but it's called something else. I think like preview builds or something in the settings, the modern UI settings app. I guess it's not really control panel anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely updates automatically. And Microsoft was saying when they released the new build that for most people it's just gonna update itself overnight. They won't even have to do anything.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice. I've done the beta thing in the past and had to, when a new one comes out, you got to wipe and start over, and it's nice to keep your stuff at least until that time when the final release comes, and then you're totally stuck. But
yeah, then it expires.
Yeah. Oh well.
Although, I mean, if they're doing this, they could do they could offer some kind of upgrade path where you don't have to wipe up, to wipe everything. And
they won't. They could, but they won't.
Probably not, I guess.
I could be wrong, but I'd be happy to be wrong. But I just it seems really unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting the latest builds, then eventually you're going to get the release candidate, and then you could just buy a key, and then you don't have to. But yeah, maybe they won't.
I don't know.
They should.
But I've never seen that before, and it would be really unusual. So, I don't know. Hey, Jordan, we've got a few other things on the list of stuff to talk about, but I think we're getting near the end of our allotted time.
Of our live stream journey?
Yeah, I kind of think we are.
Let's see. So you don't want to do any of these reviews?
Well, it's been so long since the last podcast. We could talk for a long time, but I'm tired, man. I had to set up all that streaming junk.
So just while we're at it, this is the part of the show, folks, where I'd love for us to continue, make it a better episode, but Scott usually complains about being tired, and then shut these down. So you who are watching the live stream, you're getting the inside scoop on why this show isn't as good as it could be. But anyway,
Wait, I think it's time
I
to
kid.
switch back to the
Okay,
show.
so that wraps us up for this episode of the podcast. Much thanks to Cyril Kowalski, Jeff Gager, and Scott Wasson for joining me. It occurs to me that I didn't introduce you guys at the beginning of the show because I was so in the moment, for the whole live stream thing. And we're going to get so much hate in the comments from people then be like, why do you keep talking about the live stream? We can't see it. We're listening to the audio version, blah, 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 blah. And to you, I say, so that's, chill.
Folks, that's better than burping, so
Oh, and I had that lined up too, but I canceled that. Anyway, okay. We'll see you on the next episode. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com, or excuse me, our show notes our handles are in the show notes. I'm twitter.com/Jordan Drake. So that's pretty straightforward. And Jeff is Jeff Gager. And Scott's Scott Wasson. And Cyril is Cyril Kowalski, right?
I'm C. Kowalski. Come on, man.
That's right.
Yeah, but I don't tweet.
Well, I don't actually follow you, Cyril, so I kid.
Well, I don't follow you either, Jordan, as of now. So
he's reaching up.
That backfired me in a good way. And thanks to Junior Damage for monitoring our comments and creating memes. You're a delight, my son. Or
Actually, my
Scott-
son. But
Scott's son. But
My
I meant
son.
that in the sort of the I meant that in the communal
Yeah.
sense.
uh,
Okay. We'll see you on the next
I'm not sure
episode.
if that communal is what you wanted to go with there.
I don't know. Not communal. What's the other one I'm looking for? Sort of
metaphorical.
I don't know.
Let's all give a big hand to Jordan Drake for hosting the episode.
There you go. That's
And a
Cyril.
big hand to Drake as well.
Drake
for
for
joining
Drake
us.
for being Drake. All right. We'll see you on the next episode. I'm Jordan Drake for the rest of the team at the podcast and for the website and all that stuff, saying so long. This is one more part of the sausage making that people can see. This is the part where we decide on what the episode is going to be called, and then I record the voiceover for it. So really, folks, this is what you tuned in for. Here it goes. We all wait while Scott comes up with a name. Dun, dun, dun,
I got
dun,
nothing.
dun, dun, dun.
You guys could give it. Come on, you come up with a name.
All right, what do we got in this episode?
Not quite live from Twitch.
How about iPads, Android phablets, and not quite live?
Everybody's making money but AMD.
Hmm.
These moments of silence feel way more uncomfortable with this many people watching.
Yeah, Dancing Jack, the Chimp's Gone Wild doesn't quite work, but it's only for people who watched it that would know that.
How does that? I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something that fits all this in, and it is not easy, gentlemen. How's this?
Ooh. Yeah, that works. I actually like that. All right. Let me give this a shot. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164, the one where we get twitchy over new Apples, Nexuses, and beefy games. Try it again. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164, the one where we get twitchy over new Apples, new Nexuses, and beefy games. One more. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164. This is the one where we get twitchy over new Apples, Nexuses, and beefy games. One more time. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164. This is the one where we get twitchy over new Apples, Nexuses, and beefy games.
I don't think you got it quite right, Jordan.
Well, I was trying to get the right inflection, and also I felt like I didn't quite pronounce twitchy right until the last take there. It's hard to say where we get where we get twitchy. You kind of have to add that this is the
Just
one.
say we get twitchy.
Yeah, that's not in
That's
the,
actually
that's not
what
in
I
the script, man.
wrote.
You're ad-libbing here.
I'm trying to expand on the concept.
But
Forgive
you're
me for-
complaining about how hard it is to say the part
No.
that you added.
No,
You're
I
shitting
did
yourself.
not. I said it was hard to say the word twitchy, and for people, that's not what I was complaining about. I said
okay.
it's hard to say the word twitchy, not the one where we get. That's easy. I just said
Alright.
it's like the one where we get with twitchy, and I was trying to get that right.
You
Let
sounded.
me do it.
you
Let me do it
sounded
right. Since
fine
you guys
to
are giving
me.
me such. All right.
Good lord.
Enough.
I don't even know which.
Do a
All right,
banana
Scott, go
Scott.
back to the chat.
Shut up!
We have an angry gorilla picture.
Oh, these voices in my head. All right, here we go. One more time. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164. We get twitchy over new Apples, Nexuses, and beefy games. One more time. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 164. We get twitchy over new Apples, Nexuses, and beefy games. That's pretty damn well enough.
Sound good to me, man. Thanks to all the people who listened and stuck with us through this
Yeah, guys,
little
thanks
adventure.
for watching
Yeah.
and listening. And next time, I promise I'll be on video, and you can watch me eat and burp my way through the entire thing. Or not.
Because that's what we do.
That's what you do. I also want to
Guys,
end
for the
this.
record, I'm not unamused. I just have a very relaxed. This is my relaxed phase. I don't
Oh, yeah, his resting heart rate is like a beat every other minute.
exactly.
Really. Very
Exactly.
slow. It's just like,
I'm just not a very expressive guy.
Cyril's heart is like the just, taking
It's
his
a
time.
whale song, apparently.
There you go.
I just have a giant whale in my heart.
There you go. He's lonely. All right. I got to get the hell out of here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
All right.